There are silences that feel empty, and then there are silences that feel like they are holding their breath, waiting for you to make a mistake. We found the latter in the shadow of the collegiate peaks. The year was 2020, spring break. We were in the dying days of our junior year of college, a time that should have been defined by carefree excess. But the four of us, myself, Kevin, Ally, and Seb, were veterans of the road running on empty. Our bank accounts were decimated, forcing us to abandon the safety nets of paid campsites for the wild, unpredictable, and free allure of dispersed camping. I was the navigator of our frugal destiny. I found a spot on a glitchy, user-generated app that catered to the desperate and the adventurous. It was a digital pin drop in the middle of a void outside Buena Vista, Colorado. The instructions were cryptic, almost mocking. Follow Forest Service Road 17B until the gravel gives up, then keep going. As my beat-up sedan crunched over the deteriorating trail, the trees seemed to lean in, creating a tunnel that swallowed the twilight. We arrived just as the sun transformed into a blazing, dying ember behind the jagged mountains. The location was a vast, circular clearing bordering a bone-dry creek bed, a pale, serpentine scar on the earth where water had once rushed but now only dust remained. The isolation was absolute. It was a vacuum of civilization. No distant hum of highways, no contrails in the sky, not even the faint tread of a previous tire. As Ally whispered, looking out into the darkening woods, it was perfectly forgotten. We pitched our tents in a loose, drunken scatter. There was no strategy to it, just a constellation of four mismatched nylon domes pitched wherever the ground wasn't trying to stab us with rocks. We were roughly 15 to 20 feet apart, a chaotic little village. The night passed in a blur of cheap beer, a worn-out deck of cards, and the kind of easy rhythmic laughter that only exists between friends who have seen each other at their best and worst. By 11 p.m., the thin mountain air and exhaustion claimed us. We retreated to our separate zippers. And this is where reality begins to blur. I am a famously light sleeper. At home, the hum of a refrigerator or a passing car is enough to pull me from a dream. In a tent, the snap of a twig usually has me reaching for a flashlight. But that night, I didn't just sleep, I was extinguished. It was a black, velvet suppression. There were no dreams, no tossing and turning, no waking up to pee. Just a chemically deep, unnatural void. I woke with the sun high in the sky and an immediate visceral nausea. The air felt heavy, pressurized like the moment before a lightning strike. I unzipped my fly and stepped out into the morning light. And my blood ran cold. The chaotic village we had built the night before was gone. In its place was a geometrical impossibility. Our four tents had been moved. They were now arranged in a perfect, precise square. Each tent formed a corner, rotated and positioned with mathematical exactness. They had been relocated 20 to 30 feet from where we had slept, yet the stakes were driven deep into the soil, the rain flies were taut, and the zippers were closed. Inside my tent, my phone was still on its charger, my sleeping bag rumpled exactly how I left it. I had been moved, gear and all, without waking up. In the dead center of this terrifying square stood a small cairn. 4 river stones, smooth and gray, balanced atop one another in a delicate, impossible tower. They were alien objects in that dusty clearing. I screamed. Kevin stumbled out first, his eyes wide with the same dawning horror I felt. Then Ally and Seb. No one spoke for a long minute. The geometry spoke for us. Did we get blackout drunk? Kevin whispered, his voice trembling. Did we do this? We looked at the ground and found the answer. In the fine, powdery dust there were drag marks. Deep furrows leading from our original spots toward the new square formation. But the terror lay in where they ended. The drag marks stopped abruptly about 10 feet short of the new locations. The earth was undisturbed for those final 10 feet. Whatever had moved us had dragged us while we slept, and then, with effortless power, had lifted us into the air to place us gently in this formation. Then came the confessions. Ally, pale and shaking, described a dream. She was walking a tightrope across an infinite desert while a voice counted her steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. Kevin looked at her terrified. He had dreamt he was in an army, marching in perfect, locked step with faceless soldiers, unable to break formation. The themes were identical: control, order, placement. But the scariest part wasn't the tents or the dreams. It was the feeling. A psychic claustrophobia. I looked at Seb and I didn't just see his fear. I felt it vibrate in my own chest. It was as if our minds had been bridged. A fifth consciousness was present in that clearing, a watcher that was somehow woven into the silence between us. We stood around the center of the square, paralyzed. Kevin, trying to make sense of reality, leaned in to inspect the cairn of stones. His foot slipped and he nudged it. The stones tumbled to the dirt. Clack, clack, clack. The reaction was instant. From deep beneath the dry creek bed, a sound began. It wasn't the rumble of an earthquake. It was the grinding, mechanical groan of immense friction. It sounded like a colossal stone door, buried miles underground, was being slowly pushed open. The sound vibrated in our teeth. The shared psychic link screamed one word in all our minds: run. We packed with the frantic desperation of prey. Hands shaking, poles snapping, gear thrown haphazardly into trunks. We didn't speak, we didn't need to. We were a hive mind of pure panic. In under 5 minutes we were tearing down that forest road, leaving the perfect square and the scattered stones behind. We didn't stop until we hit a gas station on the main highway, shivering under the fluorescent lights. That was 5 years ago. We drifted apart after graduation. Kevin went to Denver, Ally to California, Seb to Chicago. We don't talk anymore. I think we avoid each other because looking into their eyes brings it all back. We treat it like a fever dream, but deep down we know the truth. The silence of that clearing didn't stay in the woods. It followed us home.
This incident is a well-known story among forest rangers in the Cascade Mountains of Oregon, dating back to the fall of 2019. The missing person was Sarah, an experienced backcountry hiker. Sarah had set out for a solo trip on a well-marked trail, scheduled to return in 3 days. She didn't show up. Search teams were dispatched, but the situation was immediately strange. Sarah's last known location was not deep in the woods, but in a small, clear patch right next to the main trail. Her tent was still there. Her backpack, her supplies, and even her open journal next to the cold campfire were all intact. But Sarah was gone. Normally in these missing person cases, there's a trace, a ripped piece of clothing or a disturbed footprint. The only thing left behind by Sarah was the perfectly smooth, undisturbed patch of dirt in front of her tent. It was as if the surface she stood on was suddenly erased. The detail that most unsettled the rescue team was the final entry in her journal. She had written down her hiking plans normally, but the very last line contained only one word, part of an unfinished sentence. I took the wrong path, but that path. That was the end of the story. No tracks. No struggle. Sarah, with her boots laced and her gear neatly inside her tent, had simply vanished without a trace from the wilderness. Rangers still pass by that area, looking at the smooth patch of dirt where Sarah's journal lay, and they know that some things don't just get lost. They are simply taken somewhere else.
That terrifying perfect square is where our story ends, but the questions remain. I want to know what you think. How could 4 separate sleeping people be moved and perfectly rearranged without waking up? Was it unseen force or something else entirely? Drop your most chilling theories in the comments section below. If this story gave you the chills, hit the like button. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next deep dive into the unexplained. See you in the next video.